Hello and welcome to our very special webinar, Going Paperless with Evernote. I'm Steve Dotto and I'm joined by my go-to guy for all things paperless office, Brooks Duncan. Hey Brooks, how are you doing today?
I'm great. How are you?
I am great and excited and looking forward to learning what you have to teach us all about Evernote. Now, before we begin, though, I'm going to let people know about the structure of this webinar. This is actually what we call a hybrid webinar. So Brooks and I are actually pre-recorded. A couple of days before you're actually watching this now, Brooks and I got together and we recorded this webinar and we're streaming it through. The reason we did that is there's a couple of reasons. First of all, hybrid webinars just work better because they eliminate all of the technical details of uploading in real time and all the challenges that can represent. We've all been watching webinars that have gone off the rails and the poor presenters are all verklempt and all of the energy goes out. So if you pre-record, you eliminate all of those issues. Plus, we can stream in much higher quality than we could upload in real time. So you're getting a much better quality video since we're looking at screens and stuff. That helps a lot as well. And lastly, we really respect your time and we want to make sure that we pack as much information into 1 hour as we possibly can so we can edit this down. And if Brooks messes up, which he's known to do on occasion, or if I ramble, which I'm known to do on occasion, we can trim that down to make sure that we keep you to 1 hour of incredibly dense information. But we still like the idea of having a live webinar. So Brooks and I are joining you in the chat room right now. So through the entire webinar, we can sidebar with you, answer questions, interact with you. So we are going to be watching it along with you and interacting with you in the chat area. So please say hi to us, be kind to us. In the beginning, just start out by telling us where you're all from. I'd love to know where you're all from. I get such a, do you get a thrill, Brooke,
Oh, it's
out
fun.
of when you see people from all over the world, and I hope that they aren't just from Vancouver. But yeah, the entire list, Vancouver, I'm kidding. We'll have people from all over the world, and it's great to see where you're coming from. It really gives us a charge and adds some extra energy to the beginning. So with that, those are the basic notes. Don't worry if you have to jump out or if you have technical issues and your internet connection drops for whatever reason. You're going to be sent a replay link, so you're going to be able to view the entire webinar in its entirety, as well as any extra content that we have. We're going to be sending you one email at the end of this. If you want to get more email from either Brooks or I, you're going to have to sign up for our newsletter list. We didn't automatically enroll you in our newsletters, but you'll be getting one follow-up email from this webinar, which is going to contain all of the information. And as I say, if you want to continue getting an ongoing relationship with us, you'll have to sign up for one of our newsletters, and we'll put those links up as we go along. So with that, Brooks, are you ready to go, my friend?
I'm ready. Let's do it.
Okay, let's get into Going Paperless with Evernote. Brooks Duncan.
Yeah, thanks. So I'm a big Evernote user. I've been using Evernote for a long time, and I've been talking about doing a Going Paperless with Evernote webinar for ages. And Steve has finally sorted things out so we can do it. I was looking back. I was just curious how long I've been using Evernote. My very first note that I saved to Evernote was in August 2008, and it was a web clipping about, appropriately enough, going paperless at home. So I started using Evernote related to going paperless, and I've been using it ever since. I have right now about 7,080 notes in my Evernote database. Some of you might have a bit more, some of you might have less. But suffice it to say, I've been using Evernote for a long time and have been digging through the nooks and crannies trying to figure out the best way to use it, at least the best way that works for me. I thought I would start, though, by talking just very briefly about what Evernote actually is. I know a lot of you already use it, but when I first announced this webinar, I had a lot of people asking me, what the heck is this Evernote thing I keep hearing about? And we sometimes forget that not everybody uses this thing. They just hit 100 million users, which is pretty incredible for a software like this. But what Evernote actually is it's almost like a hybrid. It's both a software, so it could be a piece of software that you install on your computer or your mobile device, and it's a service. They have a server that you can upload your information to. And basically what you do is you store your stuff into it. And you can store anything you want, but we're going to be talking about specifically about going paperless. There's different ways that you can access Evernote. I find it quite surprising that a lot of people don't even realize that there are Mac and Windows applications that you can install on your computer in order to use Evernote. A lot of people use Evernote just through the web browser, which definitely works. or they use it through their mobile devices as well. But if you're going to be using Evernote for going paperless, which I'm assuming most of you are thinking about, if you're able, sometimes you can't, sometimes IT won't let you install stuff or whatever, I really recommend that you install either the Mac or the Windows Evernote application on your computer. You're going to get the best experience and the most kind of efficient experience using Evernote if you install those programs. But if you can't do that for whatever reason, it is possible to just use the Evernote website. Now, why do people use Evernote to go paperless? Because a lot of people do. And the first reason why is it gives you the ability to remember everything. You can put all your documents, all your information, whatever information you're comfortable with, into Evernote, and it just gives you one place to store all this stuff. The other benefit is it's available everywhere. From whatever computer you have access to or mobile device, you can get at your Evernote information if you choose to allow that. And it allows you to, even if you don't have your computer or your mobile device, as long as you can get to a web browser, you can get to your stuff. And the third reason why people like using Evernote for going paperless is it allows you to find information quickly. It has really good search and organization stuff built in that allows you to get right to the piece of information that you're looking for. Now, Evernote they use what's called a freemium model. And so what they do is they give you the ability to have a free account. And that a free account allows you to you can store an unlimited amount of data. They don't limit you on the amount of information that you can store, but they limit you the amount of information that you can upload every month. So the free account limits you to about 60 megabytes per month. They have what's called a premium account, which is about $5 a month, or I think $45 a year, which allows you to upload up to a gigabyte per month. And there's some extra features as well that we'll talk about as we go through today.
And I should point out, Brooks, that if people decide that they like taking notes in the Moleskine notebook,
sure.
That includes, when you buy one of these notebooks, they're a little bit expensive. They're about $32 like for the standard size, but that includes 3 months access to Evernote Premium. So if you buy 4 notebooks a year, 1 per quarter, that covers your access to Premium.
Yeah, sure. And there's always different little ways that you can get free Evernote months. Sometimes a scanner gives you a free year. They are always having little things that allow you to get free months. So you could pay for it once and ride out that premium if you wanted to, for sure. For business users, they have what's called Evernote Business. Now, a lot of businesses just use the premium plan, and that's fine. But what Evernote Business does is it allows you to have, if you have multiple users, it allows you to have kind of a centralized administration and a centralized organization point and kind of control things from there. And that's $10 a month per user, and you have more storage as well. Many people just happily get by with the free Evernote, and that totally works. If you're going to be using it for going paperless, though, you're probably going to want to go for at least the premium account. And the reason why is because with that 60 megabytes per month that you have on the free plan, if you're going to start scanning lots of documents into Evernote, you're going to hit that limit pretty quickly. So if you're really looking to use Evernote to go paperless, you're probably going to want to think about that premium account. But like Steve said, there's different ways you can pick up, free months here and there. There's also some other features that we're going to talk about that are available through Premium as well. Now let's talk about what goes where. So you want to put stuff into Evernote, how do you get it in there and where does it go? And there's all sorts of different things that you can put into Evernote if you want. You can type in text, you can copy and paste in text, you can clip web pages, save web pages. If you're going paperless, mostly what you're going to do is scan PDFs into Evernote, and really anything else you can add to Evernote. They used to have limits on the types of files that you can store and that sort of thing, but really those limits aren't there anymore. You can store pretty much anything you want into Evernote as long as it fits within your size quota. Now the big question that people have when it comes to Evernote is how do I organize my information? What's the best way to organize in Evernote? And the good thing and the bad thing about Evernote is it's so open. You can kind of do it however you want. And this is good because we all have different things that we store. Our businesses are all different. Our life is all different. And our brains all work differently. So a perfect organization system that makes sense to me will look crazy to you, and vice versa, because our brains just work different ways. So Evernote is good in that respect, that it supports all of that, but it's bad because it's kind of hard to know where to start. You know what I mean? So, when it comes to organizing Evernote, I think of it from two main perspectives. The first is naming your notes, and especially when we're talking about our paperless documents, naming those electronic notes so that we can find them again later, and then coming up with an organizational structure that makes sense to us. And those are the two things you really want to focus on. Now, for those of us coming from storing documents in files and folders and going into Evernote, there's one concept that you really need to wrap your head around because it's not totally intuitive if you're not used to the Evernote lingo. Evernote kind of has its own lingo around how things work. And the first thing you'll really want to understand is that everything in Evernote is stored as a note. So it's not like you put your files into Evernote. Everything in Evernote lives inside a note. So this is a screenshot of a sample of a note. And I just want to take you through kind of the anatomy of, and this screenshot's for Mac, but on Windows and mobile devices, the general concepts are all the same. And so what you've got is you've got your note in Evernote, and each note is going to have a title. So this is something that you call the note. And when you're looking at your list of notes in Evernote, you're going to see a list of titles. So you want to pay some attention to that title. Next is there's usually some date information. It's got a create date and an updated date. So you can tell when that note has been created and updated. And you can use that to either search or sort on. There's some organization information as well that shows you the notebook, which we're going to talk about in a bit, which is where that note lives. And it will show you some tags, which we're also going to talk about, which just gives some extra description.
Brooks, I always tell people, if I could just interrupt for a second.
Please do.
I always tell people that they've got to break the real world metaphor.
Yep.
Traditionally when we organize stuff on our computers back when we learned to, we followed the real world metaphor of files and folders and, and nested information. This is search-based technology now. It doesn't matter where the note is, you're going to be finding it through other means than browsing through files and folders for it. So it's really all about setting it up so you can find the content later, and it's how you're basically articulating what that content is. So trying to see a physical structure, trying to imagine a physical structure is an exercise in futility.
Absolutely.
When you're looking at Evernote.
Yep, absolutely right. Now notes have content, so you can type in information or paste in or capture. There's a content area in the note. And then what's key to understand when you're going paperless is notes have attachments. So if you're scanning a PDF to Evernote, now you don't have to do this. Typically your scanning software and or Evernote are going to do this for you. But what's really happening is you're not saving your PDF as a file in Evernote. What you're really doing is you're attaching that PDF to a note. So like Steve said, you have to get out of that mindset of files and folders when it comes to Evernote, and you have to think of notes as the main building block of your organization in Evernote. Now, I talked a little bit about the title there, and I want to zoom in a little bit on the topic of naming your notes, because you might think, Steve was saying Evernote is search-based, which absolutely it is. But when it comes to going paperless with Evernote, what you want to do is you want to spend some time thinking about how you're going to name your documents in Evernote. And that's when we come into naming our notes. And I generally recommend that you come up with some sort of naming convention when it comes to naming those notes when it comes to your documents, because that's going to help you find them later. And when you're looking at a list of information in Evernote, it's going to help you just tell by looking at the list of names what that document is without having to click into it to see what the document is. So you'll want to spend some time thinking about the name. Now, having said that, what I recommend is that you keep that naming structure simple. You don't want to go too crazy typing in this big long description because that just takes up too much time. What you want to do is just have it a very simple description of what the document is. Now, a friend of mine, a guy named Brett Kelly, he wrote an ebook called Evernote Essentials, and I was at an Evernote conference back in 2011, I think, and he was giving a talk. And I really liked the way that he put this. And what he was saying is, when you're naming your Evernote notes, what you want to do is you want to think of your future you. And what we mean by that is, you know, when you're saving this note, you know what it is, right? Because you're the one saving it. But what about in a year or 2 years? I was mentioning that I have notes going back to 2008. What if I'm looking for one of those notes? So what you want to do when you're naming your note is think about what are the words I might use to look for this piece of information later, and then work that into the name of the note somehow. That piece alone will really help you be able to find this information later if you're looking for it. Now, the next thing about naming your notes, and when it comes to paperless documents, this one's a little controversial. Some people like doing this and some people don't. I personally recommend that you use dates in the name of the note. Now, I said earlier that notes have a create date and a modify date and all that sort of stuff, which is great. But I like being able to see that date in the name of the note. And then you can use that to search on later easily. And just for eyeball purposes, just so when you look at a list of files, you can see the date right in the file name. So that's what I personally recommend. Some people don't like using dates. You just have to do what works for you. If I was saving a Comcast bill, and not that we have Comcast here in Canada, but just as an example, if I was scanning a Comcast bill to Evernote, this might be an example of a title I give my note in Evernote. I'd have the date of the file. I would almost certainly have the word Comcast there, and then I might want to have some extra descriptor like bill. And if I'm looking at that document in Evernote, I'm going to be able to see right away exactly what that piece of information is. So that's really what I think about naming Evernote notes. You have to do what works for you. And there's tools out there that will really help with being consistent with naming your notes. I use Text Expander a lot on the Mac. On Windows, there's a tool called Breathy, which will also help with naming notes. And those can really help enforce consistency and just make it a lot easier with naming your notes.
I'll put a link in here. I've got a nice little video showing how to use Text Expander.
Nice. Awesome. Now let's talk about structure. And this is an area where people really get hung up on and almost get into analysis paralysis. You know, how do I structure my notes in Evernote? What kind of organization system do I use? And the first thing you want to understand when it comes to organizing information in Evernote is I was saying that notes are the basic building blocks of Evernote, which is true. But the next level up from there is something called a notebook. Every note that you have lives inside a notebook, and each note can only be in one notebook at a time. Now, where people run into trouble when it comes to organizing information in Evernote is exactly what you were saying earlier, Steve, and that you really have to wrap your head around this, and that is that notebooks are not the same as folders. And what people will often try to do is they have an existing folder structure on their computer, and what they want to do is migrate that into Evernote. And I can tell you right now, in almost all cases, that concept just doesn't work. You really have to rethink how you want to organize your information.
You know, the term notebook is really accurate, though, when you think about it, Brooks. If you're just taking notes and you're in one meeting and then you're doing personal notes in another at another time, and then you're writing down directions and then you write down a recipe, those would all go in a journal or in a notebook.
Sure.
What Evernote is it's a magic find system that allows you to find all of those regardless of where they are within the notebook.
Sure, and if you want to use that metaphor even further, when we're going paperless with Evernote, what we're really doing is if we were applying this to physical information, what we're doing is we're taking that document, say we're taking our phone bill, and we're stapling it to a page in the notebook. That's basically what we're doing. We're just doing it all digitally. Now, one reason why you can't or you shouldn't migrate your folder structure into Evernote is that there's a limit of 250 notebooks in your Evernote account. And 250 notebooks might sound like a lot to you, but if you think about how you use folders, for example, a lot of people, when they go into Evernote, what they might do is, if they're a business, maybe what they'll start doing is create a notebook for each client. And that seems logical when you first start doing it, but what you're really doing is you're limiting yourself to 250 clients. You know, depending on the success of your business and how your business works, someday you're going to hit that limit, and then you've got to totally re-engineer your whole system. So I don't tend to recommend doing stuff like that. What I would recommend doing is, for example, having a client's notebook. This is what I do anyway. Have a notebook called Clients, and then store everything in there. And there's other ways, which we're going to talk about, where you can use to differentiate those files.
And we should point out to people who are panicking now, who haven't used Evernote, are going, oh my God, this is too complicated. The tagging structure, which is what we're going to be talking about, which is how you demark the individual type accounts, it is brilliant within Evernote, and it is a very simple concept to master. Yep. But it gives you it gives you that internal structure that we all strive for. Sure. It adds that layer to it, but you just have to look at it slightly differently.
Absolutely. And the other thing, the other reason why notebooks and folders aren't equivalent is because Evernote doesn't really have the concept of a folder hierarchy. So the way it works is it doesn't have the concept of folder, subfolder, subfolder, subfolder. It has what's called stacks, and here's an example of some of my stacks. But those really are only a visual representation, and you can only do it one layer deep. So if you have this idea that you're going to create this elaborate folder structure in Evernote, you just can't do it, because with notebooks, that is, because you're limited to one layer deep. So there's no right way to organize your notebooks, and everybody does it differently. I was reading an article with an interview with Phil Libin, who's the founder of Evernote and the CEO of Evernote. And he was saying that basically what he does is he just stores everything in one big notebook and uses search to find what he needs. I don't personally do that. I do break things out into multiple notebooks. But what you want to think about when you think about organizing in Evernote is try to just use high-level notebooks and then come up with another organization scheme, which we're going to talk about in a second, using within those notebooks. Don't try and make notebooks your primary organization scheme, because it probably isn't going to work.
And the other thing that I would add is don't stress about it at this point, because it can be changed. Start using it, and at the beginning, don't have any notebooks.
Yeah.
You know, if you want, just use the inbox, and then as you start to see some sort of internal structure in your mind's eye, then you can start adding them. Now, that is for general things. Certainly for the paperless side, we're going to give you enough structure in the rest of this webinar that you can start with some notebooks, but don't let that structure slow you down from starting to use Evernote. You can use it with absolutely no structure, and everything is just fine.
Yeah, absolutely. Like, you can have a finances notebook for your financial type documents. You can have a vehicle notebook. You can have a client's notebook. You know, you can create these high-level notebooks, but just don't worry too much about getting into those deeper folder structures. So yeah, like Steve says, you don't need to go too crazy on organization, especially when you're beginning. This is the great thing about digital files. It's so easy to move things around that you can start simple and expand from there, absolutely. Now, Steve was talking about tags, and tags is an interesting area because a lot of us aren't familiar with that concept. If you've never used tags before, basically what a tag is, it's a descriptor it's a way that you can describe a note, and what it can do is give you that extra layer of organization and findability that just having it in notebooks doesn't necessarily give you. And the nice thing about tags is it's a way to, the way I use tags anyway, it's a way to bind information together regardless of where it actually lives in Evernote.
And it allows you multiple combinations. You know what the best way to explain this, Brooks?
Sure.
Is when you think about a photograph, and we've been able to do this for quite some time in things like iPhoto, where you can, if Brooks and I are in a photo together, we can have one tag that says Brooks, one tag that says Steve, one tag that says conferences, one tag that says friends, one tag that says business associates, and all of those different tags could be assigned to that one photo. And as you pull those different tags together, the relevant documents kind of rise to the top and bubble to the surface. And that works through the entire Evernote structure. Tagging to me is the most important skill to learn in Evernote. Now everybody doesn't have to use it that way, but for me, tags are at the heart of it.
Yeah, and some people do, which, Steve, it sounds like what you do, is some people will actually create, because you can't really do this in notebooks, they will create a hierarchical structure, organization structure using tags, and then apply that to their documents. So,
yeah, I've got very few notebooks. Almost everything goes in my inbox, but I tag everything as it comes in, and that's how I search.
Yeah, absolutely, and that works really well. The way that I tend to use tags is, just as an example, this is a ticket for a soccer game that I went to in London. And so like I was saying, I use tags as a way to bind together information across wherever it happens to live in Evernote. So for example, what I might do is I went to this game in London, so I'm probably going to give this tag or this note a tag of London. I like when I travel places, I like tagging it with the place where I'm going to, because that allows me to quickly bring up all the information from that place, which is really helpful. Now, if I'm somebody who soccer is important to, what I might do is I might also give it a tag of soccer. And that way, anything across all my Evernote that has to do with soccer will all be brought together, and I can see it all in one place. Another area that I really use this stuff for is with conferences. So if I'm going to a conference, and let's say I happen to be going to London for a conference with this, I might give it, and the conference was, say the tag I give it is ABC 2014 is the name of the conference, let's say. What I will do is I will tag all my travel documents, all my notes, all the itinerary, everything to do with that conference. I will give it that ABC 2014 tag, and that way, when I'm going to this conference, I can see all the information related to it all in one place.
If I can just toss in here, and this is completely from right field, but if you're collecting information on your phone as you're at these sort of events, Evernote also has a location service where it will actually tell you where the note was collected on your map.
Yeah,
and we won't spend too much time on that right now, because for the most part, archiving your going paperless means doing stuff in your office. But I will attach a video here that people can view at their own time, where I show that feature.
Yeah, it's a great feature for sure. Yeah. So tags really, now one thing I will say, and I'm not going to tell you not to do this because everybody does it. It's almost like a rite of passage for Evernote. But what most people do when they first start using tagging, I did it, probably Steve, you did it too, is they just go crazy tagging every possible thing related to that note. Give it 10 tags with every possible descriptor.
Tag me.
Yeah. And then you just get this crazy list of tags.
That are useless.
That are useless, that you'll never use again to look something up. So the way I try to approach tags is make sure every tag that I use has a job. There's a specific reason why I'm giving this document or this note a tag, and that job is for me to be able to help find it later or to group things together later. So that's how I use tags.
I got to make an admission. I tend to overuse tags, as you can tell from what I said. But and with Evernote, it's not that you go in occasionally and you do spring cleanings. And when I'm on flights, that's one of the reasons I have the premium Evernote, is I can have everything offline.
Yep.
When I'm on a flight, quite often what I'll do is I'll just sit down and I'll go through my tag structure, and I'll look at anything that has a single note attached and look at how I can change which tags are attached to it. And then I just consolidate. And that just reminds me of which tags I have so that they're fresh in my mind as I'm tagging new notes and stuff.
Yep.
So every once in a while, it's good to go back and visit your structure.
That's so funny. I do that exact same thing when I'm on flights. I do Evernote spring cleaning. That's so funny. Yeah, so like organization, here's the keys to organization as far as I'm concerned. Keep it to very few, or relatively few, high-level notebooks. Remember, you have that limit. Limit the use of tags to tags that do a job. This is what I personally recommend. Name your notes using a consistent and descriptive naming convention. And use an inbox. Have one central notebook where all information that you're scanning and saving goes to, and then that gives you a place that you can work from to make sure that all your notes are organized and tagged correctly. So that works really well for me as far as going paperless is concerned. Keeping those 4 things in check when we're talking about going paperless.
Excellent.
Now let's talk about getting stuff into Evernote, because there's lots of ways to get information into Evernote. And one really great way is with the web clipper. So Evernote provides these little plugins for, I think, pretty much every browser out there, or all the major ones anyway: Chrome, Safari, Firefox, I think Internet Explorer too.
I've got a terrific video on this for you as well, Brooks, which
Awesome.
I will put in here.
Perfect, yeah. And so, yeah, it works great. You can, if you're looking at a web page and it has some information you want to save on it, you can just hit a button, and I'll just show how that works. And it will save it right to Evernote. And this works with PDFs as you're viewing too. So let's say I'm viewing this document. I can just click the button. I can give it the notebook that I want to save it to. I can give it a tag that I want. I can go back in and give it a title if that's something I want to do. So I don't have to organize this later. I can just give it a title right away. And you can see here I'm using my consistent and descriptive naming convention. And yeah, I just hit save, and it saves right to my Evernote inbox. Or sorry, right to the Evernote notebook that I specified. And then I can just go right into Evernote, and I can view that it's saved right in Evernote just from the web clipper. So web clippers are a great way when you're working on the web, which most of us do nowadays, to pull information into Evernote. And Steve, it sounds like, has a great video that kind of goes into this in a lot more detail. Now, when we're talking about going paperless, of course, probably the main way that you're going to get information in is with a scanner. And lots of scanners nowadays, fortunately for us, have Evernote integration built right in. So that scanner you see there on the left is called the Neat Connect by a company called Neat. And what it does is it gives you the ability to scan directly to Evernote right from the scanner. It connects to your Wi-Fi network, and it will scan straight to Evernote. You don't even need to have a computer involved, which is pretty neat. No pun intended. The scanner you see there on the right is called the Fujitsu ScanSnap IX500. And that's the scanner I personally use. All the ScanSnaps also have Evernote integration built in. The only difference between that, or not the only difference, but a main difference between that and the Neat Connect is you do need to have a computer involved. So it does wireless scanning as well, but what happens is you either have your computer plugged into the ScanSnap, or you do it wirelessly. You scan your document, and then from your computer, it has Evernote integration built in where it will send the document to the Evernote application, and then it's uploaded from there. Lots of different types of scanner manufacturers have Evernote integration built in. I know Canon does, Doxy does. But even if you're using a scanner that doesn't have Evernote integration built in, you can still make it very easy to scan your documents into Evernote. And I'm going to talk in a little bit about how you can do that. I would be remiss, though, if I didn't mention the ScanSnap Evernote Edition scanner. And this is a special scanner that the ScanSnap folks make, but Evernote sells. And hardware-wise, it's basically a ScanSnap IX500. They just made it look a little more Evernote-y, and it has a green light instead of a blue light. But I get asked all the time if I recommend that scanner. And so here's what I'll have to say about the ScanSnap Evernote Edition. What it will do is when you scan your documents using that scanner, it's integrated directly with the Evernote application that you have on your Mac or Windows computer. And what it will attempt to do is it looks at the sizes of the paper, and it tries to figure out if it's a document, if it's a receipt, or if it's a business card, and will automatically save that information right to the appropriate notebooks that you've defined for those type of documents. Now, if you're somebody who basically scans to Evernote and that's all you do, then it is a pretty cool feature and the integration is very nice. The only thing I'll say about it is that's a lot of money to spend for a scanner that is basically tied into one application. So if later you, God forbid, decide you don't want to use Evernote, or if you have some documents that you want to not scan to Evernote, probably the ScanSnap Evernote edition is not the best choice. For me, if somebody was to ask me which one they should buy, it's not that the ScanSnap Evernote edition is not a good scanner, because it definitely is. I would tend to recommend that people buy the ScanSnap IX500 instead, because then you just have a lot more flexibility. You still have Evernote integration, but you can do a lot more with it that's not directly related to Evernote. So that's what I would say. But opinions differ on that one. That's just mine. Now let's talk about scanning. And 99% of the time, you're going to scan to PDF. That's kind of the standard for document scanning. So I would recommend in almost all cases that you scan to PDF if you have the choice. The one case where I recommend scanning to JPEG, and this is what I do when I'm scanning my documents, if you're scanning handwritten notes, I recommend scanning to JPEG instead of PDF. And the reason why is Evernote has surprisingly good handwriting recognition, but it only works on JPEG scans. It doesn't work on PDF scans. So what that means is when I scan my handwritten notes to Evernote, it will do its work, it uploads it to Evernote, it does its work behind the scenes, and it's not something you necessarily want to rely on, but you can see right there, I have terrible, embarrassing handwriting. It's just a disaster. But I'm constantly surprised at how many words, when I'm doing a search, Evernote will pick up off my chicken scratch handwriting. It's very impressive. So if you have a choice, I tend to recommend scanning to JPEG instead of PDF. That's what I do anyway. Now, scanners are not the only way to get information into Evernote. You can use mobile apps as well, and we're going to talk more about mobile apps in a little bit, but I just wanted to mention that that is a growing way to get information into Evernote, is using the smartphones and tablets. And like I said, we're going to cover that in a couple of minutes. Now, you may or may not know this, but Evernote actually gives you a secret email address that you can use to send information into Evernote. And so you can find this in the Mac or Windows application, or you can log into the website. Just go to account settings, and you can see there at the bottom, if you scroll down, it gives you a secret email address, and you're welcome to spam my Evernote if you want. That's one of my addresses. And this is great when you have emails that you want to send to Evernote. You can just add that address to your address book, and you just forward those emails into that Evernote address, and they'll appear in your Evernote library. So I do this all the time, forward information into my Evernote account. And there's some little ninja tricks that you can do with this. If you change the email subject, whatever you have as the subject line will be the title of that note. So if your email subject is Amazon order 12345, in Evernote, the title of the note is going to be Amazon order 12345. But you can add the @ sign, and whatever word you put after that @ sign, it will put it into the notebook. So this is a great way to quickly file information away. The notebook has to exist already, but if it does, whatever you type there, it will save it right to that notebook, which is a big time saver. And if you use those hashtags, whatever you use as a hashtag will be applied as a tag to the note. So it's a really cool way. I do this all the time to automatically file and hashtag my notes. And if you use Text Expander, which Steve and I were talking about earlier, you can make some Text Expander snippets that make this really, really fast.
Okay, Brooks, I just want to jump in here because emailing into the Evernote inbox is one of my absolute favorite things. And I do it every time I get an electronic receipt. or anything like that, the first thing I do is fire it off, and I just forward it to that email address and send it in. And I also use it increasingly for all of the really important email that I want to keep, that, even though I realize it's not the best practice around around information overload and email overload, but those really important emails I will send into Evernote that I want to archive for some reason, rather than just leaving them in my email.
Yeah, same here. Travel information as well.
Itineraries? Absolutely.
Yeah, absolutely, yeah.
Now, we should take a quick break here and just and let the people know that have been watching. The information's been flowing thick and heavy. Just to let them know about what the end game is as far as this webinar goes. Typically speaking, when you view one of these webinars, you're going to be sold something at the end. And Brooks and I were both of the opinion that we're all about community building, and we didn't want this to be a sales pitch. So there's going to be no sales pitch at the end. We're not selling a course. Brooks isn't selling a book. I'm not selling a book. We're just trying to build our community. Now, part of building that community, though, is making sure that we can be in touch with you in the future. And if you are interested in staying in touch with Brooks or myself, this is where we encourage you to sign up for our newsletter. I release a weekly newsletter, which is a digest of all of my videos that I produce on a weekly basis, plus notice of webinars such as this. And Brooks, how often do you release your newsletter?
Yeah, mine's every 2 weeks, and it has a different tip every time about just going paperless and things you can do that way. It's every 2 weeks.
So I'm including links in the video here and also in the description on the side so that you can sign up. So please, we encourage you to sign up for those newsletters. We respect you joining being a part of our community. We won't share them with anybody else, of course. But this is the easiest way for us to stay in touch with you. Now, I did say that we aren't selling anything, but it still costs a little bit of money to put these sorts of things on. And my brand, the Dotto Tech brand, has become a community-funded property. I use a site called Patreon, which is crowdfunding in order to support the Dotto Tech brand rather than selling courses or having corporate sponsors and that sort of stuff. So at this point here, this is our one little pitch for money. I encourage you, if you do consume a lot of the Dotto Tech content, you find this sort of a webinar valuable, drop by my Patreon page, take a look, and see if it's something that you might consider becoming a supporter. For as little as $1 a month, you can become one of my patrons, which I appreciate. It helps keep our doors open and helps keep the flow of content going out there. So with that, we're pretty much done as far as our pitches go. Was there anything else? You're not selling anything, are you, Brooks?
I am not. In fact, I'm one of your Patreons. So
yes, you are.
From a supporter standpoint, I can tell you the process is really cool. So very smooth. Yeah.
I tell you, from a recipient point of view, getting the money is really cool. I do like that part. But let's dive back into it. I think we're about to start talking about the differences between Windows and Mac.
Yeah. So I was saying earlier that even if you have a scanner that doesn't have fancy Evernote integration, or if you want a really automated way to get information into Evernote, the Windows application, this is one reason why I recommend installing the Windows application instead of just using the website, has the ability built in to add a import folder. So you just go Tools, Import Folders, and you can see you can define a folder there. And you can tell it, hey, Evernote, anytime you see any sort of file there, bring it into Evernote, give it a notebook, and you have a choice if you want to keep those documents just sitting there on your hard drive, if you want to have them in 2 places, or you can have it clean up the information and just have it brought into Evernote. So this is a great way to automatically bring information into Evernote, even if you have a scanner that doesn't have Evernote integration.
So it creates like a little macro to do it all.
Exactly. It's totally built in. It just watches that folder, and anything it sees, it just sucks right into Evernote.
And this is one of the things that about Evernote is, depending on what platform you're on, Evernote doesn't try and make the experience the exact same in every environment. So there are benefits that people in the Mac and the iOS world have that people in the Android world don't. But mind you, there are benefits in the Android world. I know the Android app is awesome. They've got this little widget in the Android app that there's not available in the Mac in the iOS app, which is awesome as well. So there are little benefits to each area, and so you can have a little bit of jealousy from the other areas, but a little bit of but you benefit because they just leverage the capabilities of each OS as best they can.
Yeah, and every time Evernote releases a new version, you have say they release a new Mac version, you have Windows people complaining. Every time they release a new Windows version, the Mac people complain, and everybody happily complains together. So it all comes out in the wash, I think.
I like this folder thing. I wish I had it on the Mac.
Yeah, exactly. And as a good segue to that, For whatever reason, the Mac version of Evernote doesn't have this functionality built in. Now, there are ways you can do it that are a bit too much to kind of show in a webinar like this.
Hazel?
Yeah, you can buy an application called Hazel if you want to, that's what I do actually.
I have a video on that as well. I'll put that in as well.
But if you, for whatever reason, don't want to buy Hazel, you can do it using the tools built into the Mac as well, using Automator. So that URL you see there on the screen shows you how to use the tools that are already there on the Mac to basically do the same thing as the Windows import folder. And it's not too hard to set up. It's just a tiny bit technical.
It's pretty nerdy.
Well, this is me we're talking about.
Okay. For the rest of you, it's pretty nerdy.
Yeah. Well, a little bit, yeah. So yeah, that's a great way to get information into Evernote. Now, Evernote is great on Mac, great on Windows, but I think where it really starts to shine is when we start getting into the mobile applications. And Evernote has mobile applications pretty much for every platform you can think of out there, you know, for iOS, for Android, Windows Phone. I think there's a BlackBerry version. And
actually, the Evernote, the Notes feature within BlackBerry is Evernote. So it's actually less capable because it's locked into the OS and the BlackBerry. Yeah.
Sure, yeah, makes sense.
But it does use Evernote.
Oh, that's interesting. Cool. So these mobile apps basically do what you would expect. They allow you to create notes and capture notes on your mobile device, and it allows you to get access to all your information on your mobile device as well. There's some, and this again depends on the version, Mac, iOS, Android, there's some cool extra features that these mobile apps have, and one of them is a page scanner. And what that allows you to do is if you have a document or a notebook page or something like that, what you can do is you can fire up the camera and you set it to document mode. And if you take a picture of that piece of paper, what Evernote will do is capture the scan, crop it out, and save it to an Evernote note. And you can see that there. And it does a pretty good job. So that's one easy and fast way to capture information using the Evernote camera. Now, where this really shines is with business cards. And unfortunately, this feature is only available on Evernote for iPhone. Hopefully, it will be there on Android soon because I use this all the time. So what you do is you just fire up the camera and you set it to business card mode. You just hold your phone over the card and it will automatically capture the card, look the person up on LinkedIn, pull down that information, whatever it can find from LinkedIn, and then save it as a nicely formatted note to Evernote. So
as well imported into LinkedIn.
Yeah.
And again, I'm starting to sound redundant. In the follow-up email, there will be a link to all of these videos. I just produced a video on that exact process, and it's brand new.
Yeah,
it's
very
cool. Actually, the Evernote camera has so many features. I also have a video on using it for the 3M business cards,
right.
And I'm sure you're talking a little bit later about the Moleskine notebook. So all of those work primarily through the camera app. So it's a place that has tremendous extensibility.
Yeah, and it used to be pretty substandard, I would say, the capture that they allowed you to do with the camera app. But they've really put a lot of emphasis into that over the last, say, year or two, I would say.
They've done such a good job that LinkedIn dumped Card Munch, which they bought for a lot of money in order to use it.
Yeah, so exactly. So this is my, that's very true. This is my primary way of capturing business cards now, is using the iOS app
Mine as well.
on Evernote. Yeah, it works really well. Hopefully it will come to Android soon.
Yeah, good luck.
Now, there is a danger with these mobile apps, and that danger is what a lot of people don't realize is when you're looking up information in Evernote, say you're saving your travel documents like Steve and I were talking about, and then you get on the plane and you want to look something up, and then you find out you can't get to it. A lot of people don't realize when you use these mobile apps, what it's actually doing is it's talking to the Evernote server and it's accessing that information over the network. So what you need to do if you're going to be using Evernote on a place where you don't have network connectivity, especially if you're traveling, you want to enable those notebooks, the notebooks that you want to save, for offline access. And what that will do is download the information right to your device, your phone or your tablet, and then you have access to it whether you're connected to the network or not. Now, this is a premium only feature, so free users can't do this, but for premium members, you just go into the settings, select the notebook and make it offline, and then you'll have that information accessible everywhere. So you want to be careful because obviously it's going to use space on your phone. But for example, I have a notebook called Travel, and I always have that synchronized down to my device in offline mode so that I can have access to it no matter where I am. I got burned by that once and never again.
Yes.
Now, speaking of features that the Android app has that iOS doesn't, I really wish iOS, and you can't do it because it's locked down, but I really wish that Evernote on iPhone had the ability to do what Evernote on Android does, which is add these widgets. And
yes.
the Evernote widget is a separate application. You go to the Google Store there, it's free. You go to the Google Store there and you install it on your phone if it's not already there. And what this allows you to do is and this screenshot you see there kind of shows them all, but you can just select the features that you want, but it gives you the ability to quickly capture a photo, quickly capture a note, have your frequently accessed notes right there on your Android home screen. So it makes it really, really fast to capture information and access information without even having to fire up the Evernote app. I kind of sort of do this on iOS using an app called Drafts for capturing text, but it's not as seamless as just using these widgets. So I really wish iPhone had that.
The best part of using Evernote in the Android world.
Absolutely. Yeah, absolutely right. Yeah, absolutely right. There's a lot of third-party apps that integrate with Evernote as well, that do all sorts of different things. From a Going Paperless perspective, most document scanning apps out there have some sort of Evernote integration. And yes, the Evernote app does have the page scanner, and it's a lot better than it used to be. But if you really want high-quality scans, using a third-party app is probably the best way to go. The best one, I would say, on iPhone is Scanner Pro by Riedel. That makes really high-quality scans, and you can send it right to Evernote.
And it converts automatically into PDF too, doesn't it?
Exactly right. Yeah. Exactly right. On iPhone and Android, there's an app called Cam Scanner, and that will do the same thing. And probably the app that I use the most is called Genius Scan, and it's free on iOS. It's, I think, 99 cents on Android. And it just makes it really fast and easy to capture a good-looking scan and send it off to wherever you want it to go. I actually find it faster than using the Evernote app. It doesn't have all the bells and whistles that Scanner Pro has, but sometimes that's a good thing when you're just doing quick captures.
If you're just capturing receipts and stuff like that, it's awesome.
Exactly, receipts, documents from your kid's backpack or whatever from school, that sort of thing. Yeah, absolutely right. Now you referenced this earlier, but Evernote, I think 2 years ago now, has recognized that, we all talk about going paperless, but going paperless doesn't mean the complete absence of paper. We all, or at least a lot of us, use paper to jot down information. And I guess Evernote decided to get out in front of this. So they did something that was surprising at the time, which is they released I don't even know how to pronounce it, Moleskine. Is that how you pronounce it?
I say Moleskine, but...
Yeah, Moleskine.
It's got an E at the end.
Moleskine.
Moleskine.
I'm sure somebody in the chat room will please correct us.
Every time you buy a Moleskine notebook, they include a description. They include the history of Moleskine inside it, which I think is kind of interesting, rather than instructions on how to use it, which I find frustrating.
And they are beautiful notebooks. I have one, that's mine, you see on the table there. And so
it's mine right here.
Yeah, and it's a Moleskine notebook, and it has Evernote branding on the front, but if you look closely, the lines on it are these little dots, and Evernote has tailored their app to recognize this information and use it to assist with scanning. And that feature's okay. I'm not convinced that it does things any better or worse than a normal scanning app, to be totally honest. But where they really kind of add value, I would say, is they provide these stickers. And what these stickers allow you to do is when you put the information beside a piece of your content, you can see I put a little sticker there. You can set the Evernote app up to recognize that information and then automatically do something with that page. So send it to a certain notebook and that sort of thing. So
I've got a complete review of the
Yeah.
and how to use the app in the video that we'll attach here as well.
Yeah, and whether you find, I would say, as far as unless you just think having an Evernote Moleskine is cool, I would say that the extra price of that notebook really depends on how much value you would get out of these stickers. Everything else notwithstanding, that's what I would say.
Well, you also get 3-month subscription to
That
Evernote
too,
Premium.
yeah.
So if you
That
buy
too,
Evernote
yeah.
Premium every year anyways,
Yeah.
then these Moleskine notebooks drop in Canadian dollars from 32 to 20. I think in the States they're about $22. So you can knock them
Yeah.
down to like $10 for a real quality notebook if you're going to buy it anyway. So then it becomes
Absolutely.
a pretty incredible deal.
Yeah, absolutely right. Yeah.
Yeah.
So yeah, if you're a notebook person, I don't tend to be a big notebook person, especially a large format like that. But if you are one and you're going to be using Evernote a lot,
They have different sizes.
yeah, exactly. Yeah.
Yeah. I didn't want to like it. When I started doing the review, I didn't want to like the product because I thought it was kind of nose in the air, hoity-toity.
Yeah.
Notebook guys kind of bug me sometimes.
Yeah.
But
No, I
I
understand.
loved it, and I use it all the time now.
Yep. That's cool. Yeah, lots of people use it and like it. So it's definitely something you want to look into, and it's available in the Evernote market. Now, we've been talking about this over and over, but I would say one of the big reasons to use Evernote, aside from the ability to store all your information, is the ability to find your information quickly. The problem is, what happens is we try this out. So we go to that search box, we type something in, and we just get a bunch of information back. But Evernote actually gives us some tools to really make finding information really fast, and you can zoom right into the note or the document that you're looking for. You just need to know how to do it. So I recommend taking some time, and it's just a couple minutes usually, to learn how the search in Evernote works. And what I'm going to be doing, and Steve will be sending this out after, is I will be providing a PDF that kind of takes you through some ninja ways you can use the Evernote search. And I'm just going to show you some quick examples here. So let's say you're looking for information on IKEA sofas. So what you can do is you can just type in here, IKEA sofa. And what that's going to do is that's going to find everywhere in your Evernote database that has the word IKEA and sofa, and it will either be in the title of the note, in the text of the note, or if you can see there, Evernote has really good image recognition. So inside a PDF or inside an image, it's going to find anywhere where sofa is in that image. So you can see here, I've got a picture of a IKEA price tag, and it's highlighting the word sofa inside the picture, which is pretty crazy.
That's amazing. But I should point out, one thing that will confuse people at the beginning is it doesn't search your tags when you do that. So if you've got the word in the tags, they don't come up in the search. For some reason, I don't know why, but you have to do a tag search if you want to search for your tags, not the general search. Have you ever noticed that?
So let's say you want to find information that's tagged with IKEA. What you would do is do a tag search.
Was that coming up next?
We didn't rehearse that, by the way.
Oh,
yeah,
sorry
so
about that.
that's
frustrated
perfect.
me at the beginning because I was saying, where is this stuff? Yeah.
No, that's absolutely perfect. So what you do is you type, and again, all this is going to be in the PDF, so we're just showing you some examples. You can just type tag /IKEA, and what that will do is that will do a search for any note anywhere in your Evernote database that's tagged with IKEA. So that works pretty well. But like you said, you do need to tell it to do a tag search. So
because really, the goal of going paperless is not having no paper. The goal of going paperless is finding documents without going through tons of paper in order to find your old documents.
Yeah, for me, going paperless is not about going green and being more, having a clean desk and all that stuff.
Although that is a benefit.
Yeah, all that's nice. But for me, going paperless is about, being more productive and finding the information you need right when you need it.
Yes.
Now, there was a reason I was showing all this to you on the Windows version of Evernote, and that is because on the Mac version of Evernote, they've just recently released. I think they recognize that this is all a little nerdy, like it's fine for people like me, but these commands are a little nerdy. I'll be the first to admit. So I think they've recognized this. So in the Mac version, they've just released a new feature called descriptive search. And what that is it allows you to use more natural language to find information, and it will try to figure out what you're searching for. So for example, in the Mac version, this hasn't come to Windows yet, what I can do is I can type IKEA with PDF, so that's only looking for documents that have the word IKEA, that has a PDF attachment, so it'll ignore everything else, and I just type the word instruction manuals, and it's figured out. You can see here, it's suggesting a search to us. It's saying notes with PDF files, and in the notebook, instruction manuals, and the text IKEA. So it figures out for us, and it works pretty well actually, what it is that you're looking for. And you'll find out that it actually does a pretty good job. When we select that, it will zoom right in.
Excellent.
So yeah, it's really cool. Another example here, if I'm looking for, just type the words cocktail and last year, you can see it's suggesting notes tagged cocktail created since the last month. And created since the last year. And it's automatically doing that. So we don't have to mess around with that weird date syntax. It does it for us. And my wife really likes that lychee gimlet. Just so you know, that's why it's coming up first. Okay. So
well, we're nearing the cocktail hour. So
yeah, exactly right.
So we've got two last things to chat about.
Exactly right. Now, other than organization, or maybe in addition to organization, the biggest question that people have about using cloud services in general, and Evernote specifically, is about security. Is my information secure in Evernote? And basically, this is a hard one to answer because people tend to be on a spectrum. For some people, they're absolutely not comfortable storing anything in the cloud. For others, they're comfortable storing some things in the cloud, but not really sensitive information. And for others, they're just like, I have nothing to hide, whatever, I'll just put it all out there. I'm sure it'll be fine. So you have to decide where on that spectrum you are, because the way you approach things really depends on how comfortable you are having information in the cloud. But having said that, and talking about Evernote specifically, one thing you definitely want to be aware of is that when you transfer information to and from Evernote, your information is encrypted, which means technically nobody except the NSA can get access to it. But the information stored on your computer and the information stored on Evernote servers are not encrypted. So if someone did get access to that information, maliciously or otherwise, it is possible that they would be able to access your stuff. So that's something to be aware of when you use Evernote.
Which is one of the reasons Evernote is a terrible place to store passwords, people.
Exactly. And,
and bank account numbers and any...
Exactly.
Yes.
Exactly right. Exactly right. I don't personally do that. I don't recommend that you do it. Some people do, and that's the decision that they have to make for themselves. Some things you can do, though, you can create local notebooks. So this is basically creating a notebook like we were talking about earlier, but this is a special notebook that only lives on your computer or your device. It doesn't get synchronized up to Evernote servers. So some people use Evernote and they'll store most of their information in synchronized notebooks, but their sensitive stuff in their local notebook. The only thing to be aware of there is, of course, by definition, you can only access it on that computer. You can't get to it anywhere else. What other people do is they do store sensitive information in Evernote, but they encrypt it first. You can do that on the Mac using Preview, or on Windows, there's a free application called PDF Exchange Viewer that you can use to do this. And once they password protect that information and it's encrypted, and then they store it in Evernote. So that's an option too. Now, this is not something I personally do, but I know people who do. And what they do is they will store their information in Evernote, but before they upload it, they redact sensitive information. So they'll store their credit card bill up in Evernote, let's say, but they'll remove, using there's different tools you can use to do this, but they'll remove the credit card number from the thing, or the social security number, or social insurance number, or whatever. So you have the benefit of having everything in Evernote, but you don't have that sensitive information. So that's an extra step that people can do. So again, you have to decide where on the spectrum you are. What a lot of people do, and I think, Steve, this is what you do, people store a lot of stuff in Evernote, but really sensitive information, they choose not to store it in Evernote. So that's a choice as well.
I've got a saying for people. People ask me how secure cloud storage is, and I say it's 100% secure for anything which does not need to be secure.
Exactly right. Yeah, that's a good way to put it. Yeah, yeah, yeah. So I want to close with talking about backup. And a lot of people, and I hear this all the time, people say, oh, I have my stuff backed up in Evernote, or I don't need to back up because it's synced to the cloud in Evernote. But really, and I just did a blog post about this the other day, you are responsible for your own data. Nobody cares about your data other than you. And just because something's stored in Evernote's cloud service doesn't mean it can't go away tomorrow. Either, they have a problem or you accidentally delete something. You've got to make sure that your information lives in more than one place. And using Evernote is no different than any other way of storing information. There's lots of different ways you can do it. What you can do is, if you're using the Mac or Windows applications, one thing I do is I make sure that the data files that Evernote stores my information is included in the backup system that I have running everywhere. So on the Windows, you can find the backup location. It's right there. On the Mac, you can find your backup location, and just make sure those folders are stored in your regular backup.
Brooks, you just wrote a blog post on this. Can we include just as step-by-step instructions for both environments as one of the bonuses at the end of the webinar?
Yeah, absolutely will. Yeah, I'll put that together. Awesome. Yeah, for sure. Another thing that you can do is, and this is a great way if you want to get information out of Evernote, which is something you want to know how to do before you need to with any cloud service, is you can highlight a bunch of notes and actually save the information. So you highlight the notes, you hit the Save Attachments button, and all of those PDFs or whatever attachments you have will be downloaded to your computer. So that's a quick and easy way to get information out of Evernote. Another thing oh, sorry, go ahead.
No, go ahead.
Oh, I was just going to say, one thing that I do on a regular basis, I do it on a monthly basis, is I do a complete export of my Evernote information. So that if something were to happen to my Evernote account, or this stuff happens from time to time, I can get it back. So what I do is they give you an export function. So I just highlight my notes, and you can either do this for all of your notes or do it on a notebook by notebook basis. You just highlight your notes, you go File, Export, make sure that Include Tags is selected, and it will export your information to this big XML file, and everything is included in there. So I do that once a month and just have it stored on an external drive. Just in case something happens to my Evernote information, I can get it back easily.
Brooks.
Yes.
I think we're at the end of the day.
I think so. I think that did it.
Are you feeling a little bit tired?
No, I could go. I could talk about Evernote forever.
I think we covered. You did a great job, and on behalf of everybody out there in the webinar, I need to thank you very much for the hard work that you put into it. So let's wrap things up with letting people know the details of what's going to happen next and what their options are. So shortly after this, this webinar shuts down today, I will be sending an email out to all of the attendees. It'll be a single email that will include the links for you to register to our newsletters, links to all of the videos that we've mentioned, and all of the sources that we've mentioned. As far as getting the free giveaways, Brooks PDFs, for that I'm going to ask you to register for Brooks newsletter. You can always unregister if you want later, but let's build Brooks community up a little bit. So there'll be a link for that, and then Brooks will then send on those PDFs to you. Is that okay with you, Brooks?
Yeah, that sounds great. Good way
That's perfect. And I'll also include a link to our newsletter in case you want to stay on top of what's happening in the Dotto Tech world as well. Visit Brooks online, documentsnap.com. You will be able to view this webinar depending on what day you're watching the webinar, but as soon as we finish the cycle of 2 or 3 days here of webinar delivery, it will be available online and on demand, so you'll be able to come back and watch it and tell your friends about it. They'll be able to watch it for free. We're going to keep it online for the foreseeable future till we do another one, maybe next year. And Brooks, any final thoughts?
Nope, just this stuff does not have to be complicated. Just start simply, get it going, learn how the scanning process works, and anything you can iterate and improve from there.
Okay, I'm going to end the video now. We will probably remain in the chat room for a short period of time, but not too long. On behalf of Brooks Duncan, I am Steve Dotto. Thank you so much for spending this time with us today. Have fun storming the castle.
Thanks, everyone.